Good morning. Happy Monday. It's 7:03. You're watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. It's time to rise in freedom. First up at 7:03 this morning, Mark McCloskey joins me to discuss liberals calling the military on migrants who come to Martha's Vineyard. I'll ask his opinion as a lawyer on the ATF changing their rules to offer amnesty to any AR-15 owners with pistol braces. Then at 7:35, Spike Cohen joins us to discuss Yeshiva University's controversy over an attempt to found an LGBT club at their religious school. SCOTUS declined to hear the case. Is this a case of religious freedom or freedom from discrimination? We'll discuss. Then at 8:03, Bill Maher over the weekend went over woke leftists and their historical ignorance. I'll play the clip and we'll break it down. And at 8:35 this morning, we'll talk about Steven Crowder and Alex Jones saying they're anti-libertarian. Jack Hunter says they're agreeing with Michael Moore's definition of capitalism. All that and more on this very special episode of the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. So first up, my next guest joining us right now is the man of the hour, Mark McCloskey, joining us on the line right now. Good morning, Mark. Thanks for coming on the Wake Up America show. Nice to see you today.
Thanks for having me on.
Glad to have you here, Mark. So first things first, let's get your reaction to how the liberals treated the migrants who showed up. At first, we saw nothing but pictures of them, setting up food, giving them a little bit of cold cereal. But then the news after that was that they called the military on them, Mark.
Don't you love liberals? I mean, you just can't get enough of hypocrisy. I mean, obviously, calling a liberal a hypocrite is a needlessly redundant phrase. But I mean, you see all these uber rich people, and I love the fact that they claim there's no place to house 50 people in Martha's Vineyard. There's 200,000 people there in the season. There's 17,000 people that live there full time. That means there's 183,000 open beds right now, and you'd think they'd be able to find a bed for 50 guys. But no, they got to kick them out. We love diversity. We love immigrants. They're the backbone of our nation, but not my neighborhood, damn it.
I mean, Mark, I'm laughing because it's like this was their opportunity. This was their chance. I mean, they have plenty of money. They had plenty of space. They could have won the day and showed how generous they were. Instead, all they did was prove that conservatives were right, that we have a real crisis of migrants coming across our border, and almost no one is willing to do what's necessary to be able to solve this crisis. I mean, you look at Republicans, Mark, and I mean, their rhetoric is better when it comes to fixing this one, but when it comes to action, we don't really have a lot of leadership on this issue, do we?
Well, and even the strong leaders, even people like DeSantis and Greg Abbott, are refusing to do what they can do under their constitutional power to declare an invasion and protect their own borders. I mean, Article 1, Section 10, Paragraph 3 of the Constitution give the states the powers to control their own borders in the case of invasion. And if this isn't an invasion, I don't know what the heck is. But, I've got a better question. I don't know the answer to this one. I hate to say I'm no immigration lawyer, but why don't the ranchers in Texas have a right to enforce their own property rights and have trespassers evicted off their property? I mean, if a bunch of illegal aliens came and camped out in your front porch, I bet the local cops would come and ask them to move on. I mean, we don't have the laws in this state like they do in some, or are going to have in Chicago or all of Illinois starting in January of next year, where the police are prohibited from removing trespassers from your property. I don't know if you're familiar with the Safety Act in Illinois now. But I mean,
I know how good you are at removing trespassers from your property, Mark. I think we all do.
We had a little protest yesterday. I don't know if you saw what I posted on my Facebook page. I don't know what they're protesting, but once again, their streets were our streets, no vice versa. Your streets are our streets. No justice, no peace. If we don't get it, we'll shut it down. When they were marching past my neighborhood last night, they never mentioned what it was they wanted that they were gonna. If they didn't get, they were gonna shut it down. But I mean, that's just life in the city these days. It's the decay of civilization. I mean, in all these instances, what we're seeing is the powers that be in D.C. and whoever actually pulls their strings, undermining all the basic principles of civilization. You no longer have a right to control your own life. Don't have a right to control your own safety. Don't have a right to control your own property because they don't believe in private property. They don't believe in personal rights. There's only one right, and that's the right to do what you're told by the government.
If you're just tuning in, we're speaking to Mark McCloskey. Mark became famous after defending his property from Black Lives Matter protesters with an AR-15. He ran for U.S. Senate here in the state of Missouri, and he became sort of a national, well-known figure. He's joining on this program right now. If you have a question for him or for me, you can text the show this morning at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. So, Mark, what happens now? I mean, the liberals have been shown for their hypocrisy, but, thousands of people are still streaming across the border every single day. You say that the governors, even the governors who are good in this issue, aren't using their powers under the Constitution. I mean, do you think that this just, has, the life cycle of one news cycle and then just goes, gets swept under the rug again?
Everybody is so afraid and intimidated by the mainstream media that they're refusing to do anything reasonable or necessary. I mean, what you've got is a world, our country right now, which is run by fear that somebody might call you a racist, fear that somebody might call you a xenophobe, fear of the next upcoming election. Well, our country is in crisis right now. I've been saying this for as long as I've been, had a forum to say it. There's no longer time for politics as usual. There's no longer time for politicians as usual. What we need to do is we need to have each and every individual stand up and just say, we'll refuse to tolerate this stuff. I mean, the bottom line is that if you keep electing people that are, middle of the road, mainstream politics, whether they've got an R behind their name or a D behind their name, we're going to continue this spiral. And this spiral isn't a slow erosion of our civil liberties anymore. It's a whirlpool that's sucking us down, and it's just going to keep going faster and faster and faster. I mean, when you look at everything, when you look at the government now using the DOJ and the FBI as just the Stasi, as the enforcement arm of the power structure, trapping Mike Lindell at a Hardee's takeout line, drive-up window and seizing his cell phone when he's not suspected of doing anything. I mean, what we have now is what I call is coup by subpoena, right? The left is attempting to destroy everybody that they find to be a potential opponent in the next election cycle. And you've got the president of the United States declaring that half of the population are terrorists. They start using terms involving death and destruction. We have to remove their oxygen. We have to kill and destroy. I mean, these are terms of war that are being used against half the population of the country. And yet everybody sits back and just talks about it. I mean, where is the outrage? I mean, when the president does that demonic speech, calling us all, the enemy.
Semi-fascists, yeah.
Yeah, backed up by soldiers and this demonic red glow behind him. I mean, we're 50 Republican senators standing out on the steps of the Capitol building screaming, just literally screaming that we cannot tolerate this in a free country, that we can't have a country where the president says he's got a right and a duty to control what we're allowed to hear and say and think, and enlist big tech and hoping to censor us. I mean, this is a country which allegedly has a First Amendment, which allegedly allows us to say whatever we want, whether the government agrees with it or not. But now we're being told that there's things called information and disinformation. And if you engage in what's called disinformation, the government has a right to censor you, or in these days, to arrest you and throw you in a hole in D.C. for the rest of your life.
We're speaking to Mark McCloskey right now. You can text the show at 573-319-1586. Now, Mark, since you're known as kind of the AR-15 gun guy, I thought you might be able to offer us a little bit of insight here. The word on the street is that the ATF is talking about making a rule change that would affect tens, if not possibly hundreds of thousands of Americans, law-abiding Americans here in the United States who own AR-15 pistols with braces on them. Now, for those of you who aren't, really super into guns, what this essentially means is that, we have AR-15 style pistols that are shorter than the typical AR-15 rifle. Typically, in order to get a short-barreled rifle in the United States, you have to go through certain types of forms and background checks and give a whole lot of information to the government that I know a lot of people don't want to have. But there was an exception to this rule if you had a brace rather than a stock on your AR-15, which would make it a pistol, not a rifle, so it's subject to different rules. Now, Mark, the ATF is claiming that they're going to offer what they call an amnesty period for people who own these types of pistols, saying that, that they're going to, if you don't go through all of this, of course, well, then you're a felon and you violated federal law and the FBI can come and get you. Now, in Missouri, thankfully, we have the Second Amendment Preservation Act. Missouri police officers would not be able to participate with that. But what I don't understand is how the ATF can essentially write law in such a way. I mean, we've seen them do this before, though, Mark. So, I mean, is really just the law whatever the ATF says it is?
Well, according to the Supreme Court's recent ruling in the OSHA case, administrative agencies don't have the power to create laws. But we'll have to see that one. But the better part of all this is what they call it, the pistol brace amnesty, right? Well, we all bought, to those of us who own AR pistols, we bought those legally. They're legal right now. What the government is doing is they're going to retroactively declare something which maybe as many as 40 million people in this country own now illegal unless you jump through their hoops. Not that you can't buy them in the future, not that they're illegal now, but you buy them legally, you use them legally. Now the government's going to say, okay, we're going to say it's illegal, and you have to jump through all these hoops, including fingerprinting, taking pictures of the gun and sending it into the ATF. And by the way, the government's own publications say that the time necessary to fill out the Form 1 with all the information you would need to register your AR pistol takes 4 hours. If you do that by 40 million people, that's 160 million hours. If you use the standard delay time it takes to get a Form 1 process now, I think the number comes out to something like 74,000 years it would take the federal government to process the Form 1s if we all had to comply with this nonsense. So what it's really about is trying to give the government an excuse to arrest people and seize their guns. That's what it's all about. The bottom line is that this regulation change is designed to immediately make millions of people felons. So the government can come into your house, measure the barrel length of your pistol, look and decide whether or not your pistol brace constitutes a buttstock or not, based on their arbitrary and capricious measures, and then throw you in prison. Or have the right to get you to shut the hell up, pardon my language, and do as they say, or we'll do so. And that's what all this is about. Just one more way that the government is coming through the back door, have a power, a mechanism by which to intimidate the law-abiding public.
Mark, some people are talking about the midterms this fall, and they're saying, well, the state of the economy means that it's a sure thing for Republicans. But other people are not so sure. They say that because of the abortion issue, Democrats are also fired up to vote. What do you see coming for the midterms for our future?
It is absolutely bizarre to me. I mean, you take a state like Pennsylvania, and we campaigned twice through Pennsylvania for President Trump. My wife's family are all steel workers from western Pennsylvania. But the big business there is fracking. And you got Joe Biden that comes out against fracking. You got Fetterman running for the Senate in Pennsylvania coming out against fracking. And he's leading in the polls against Dr. Oz. I mean, where's the voting population getting its information? How can you have this terrible economy, the stock market crashing, highest inflation since Jimmy Carter, highest gas prices, everything going straight to hell, and then the population is still saying, okay, we'll vote the Democrats back in. What the hell's wrong with people's brains?
Mark, is there anything else that you'd like our listeners on the show to know before we let you go, friend?
The time has come for each and every one of us to stand up and take a stand for our own freedom and say we will not comply. We've got to resist. There needs to be widespread, peaceful, social disobedience. We need to pull this country back. This is supposed to be a government by consent. And I say it every time I get a chance. When the people are afraid of the government, that's tyranny. When the government's afraid of the people, that's freedom.
Mark McCloskey, not only is a great American patriot, but he's a great Missouri patriot as well. Mark, thank you very much for your time today. We appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Austin.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You
All
too.
right. Lots more great programming left to come on the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. Coming up next at 7:22, Mark Cuban came out and said that he thinks that the boomers were not a great generation. He thinks that Gen X will go down as the greatest generation in history. Gen X? Oh, well, I guess you'll have to wait to find out more when we get back on the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen at wakeupAmericashow.com. Good morning. It's 7:23 and it's time to rise in freedom. Thanks for tuning into the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Love to hear from you over text message. Send us one, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Lots more great program to go. Did you like our interview with Mark McCloskey? We've got Spike Cohen coming to join us this morning at 7:35. We're going to talk to him a little bit about Yeshiva University and their desire to stop an LGBT group from being started there. It's going to be a great show. And of course, we've got Jack Hunter as well and all kinds of great info as well. You can text us this morning again, 573-319-1586. One listener texted in this morning and said, it's a trap, talking about the ATF amnesty period. He says, do not comply. It's a gun registry attempt. If it doesn't become law, now they'll know everything about your guns. And one listener texted in this morning asking if Mark McCloskey has any real guns. They said that his guns were fake. Sent out his wife with a fake gun against BLM. Right. For those of you who don't know the background on Mark McCloskey, so Mark ran for U.S. Senate here in the state of Missouri, and he was the guy who became famous for, coming out of his house with a AR-15, and his wife had a pistol. But they argued in court that his wife's pistol was inoperable. So it wasn't a fake pistol. It was just that they claimed that it was rendered inoperable because they use it for court cases to be able to demonstrate things. You can text the show this morning at 573-319-1586. Mark Cuban, of all people, says that he admires Gen Z. Listen to this. Billionaire entrepreneur Mark Cuban doesn't think much of baby boomers. He has high praise, however, for Zoomers. The Dallas Mavericks owner spoke glowingly of Generation Z. Now, these are people who are born between 1995 and 2010. When making decisions, he said, Generation Z, Zoomers, take into account all factors, including the effect on their mental health. Certainly, it's been a big topic of conversation on this show as well in our short period. This is our third week. He says, I think it's beautiful and very analogous to when I was getting started and technology was just happening or the internet was happening. Now, Cuban became really wealthy when he sold a video portal to Yahoo for billions of dollars back in the mid-1990s. So he knows a lot about technology. He also went on to say that organizations will have to understand more and more in not only how you treat your employees, but what your customers expect as well. So, taking into account your employees' mental health is something that, that employers are going to have to start thinking about. And then he went on to say that as for baby boomers, they will go down in history as the most disappointing generation ever, from sex, drugs, and rock and roll to what we have today. Now, Zoomers are often associated with quiet quitting. This has been the trend that we've been discussing quite a lot on the show in the last couple of weeks, and their tendency to favor happiness over productivity and also having a career that is detached from their identity. So, for me, my career is my identity. My identity is my career. So, this is something that Generation Z is trending away from, having career, themselves being defined as their job. Now, here's an interesting question for you, and I wonder what you think. Send me a text at 573-319-1586. But tell me this. Are you identified with your career? Like, are you, whatever it is that you do, like Caleb Vanderfeltz, he's the Chemna Collision guy this morning. By the way, Caleb, thank you so much for the donation. We appreciated your support of the show. But are you known as, around town, is your identity your job? Right? Are you known as, is your face up around town here in Jefferson City on a billboard as a realtor? Right? So everybody knows you as that. I wonder if you feel like you've been defined as your job. Again, send me a text, 573-319-1586. And if you are defined as your job, would you say that would you say that this has been a positive for you? Has this been good for you, or is this something that has not been good for you? I'd be curious about you. Another listener texted in and said, speaking of health, Cuban is trying to bring drug prices down with his initiative, Cost Plus Drugs. Yeah, I've only heard a little bit about this, but I haven't read too much about it. If you have more details or info, please text that over to me because I want to read more about that. I'm looking forward to learning more about that. Our other listener texted in and said, Spike, Jack Hunter, OMG. They're excited to have Spike Cohen. Well, yeah, Spike Cohen's going to be on the program here in just a few minutes. He's going to talk to us a little bit about Yeshiva University, stating that basically what happened was that there was a lawsuit this is a little convoluted, so let me try and make it as simple as possible. Yeshiva University didn't want to charter an LGBT group. There was a lawsuit. The Supreme Court, they essentially, Yeshiva University is going to be forced to charter an LGBT group unless a Supreme Court case went through. The Supreme Court declined to hear the case. This means that Yeshiva University will be forced to charter this group. However, Yeshiva University has decided to put a pause on all student activities rather than to allow this LGBT group to be chartered at their school. They've just said, well, rather than allow LGBT groups to be chartered at our school, we're just going to get rid of all student groups essentially for a short time, right? So the question is going to be now, will students be able to participate in groups? It'll be interesting to hear Spike Cohen's take on this. Of course, he's Jewish, so he'll have an interesting take on that one. He's going to be joining us here at 7:35 on the Wake Up America show. If you're excited for Spike, make sure that you give us a like on the Facebook to cheer for us. Of course, we also have our in-studio audience who can give us a big applause as well. Give us a like, share us out on your profile this morning. We'll be super grateful for that so you can support the show. Coming up next on the program, we've got Spike Cohen and lots more great content to come on the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen at wakeupamerica.show.com. Good morning at 7:35, and you're watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. Glad to have you here. You can text us at 573-319-1586. Happy Monday. Let's rise in freedom together. Our listeners have been texting in this morning. I asked the question if they felt like they were defined by their jobs. And over on the Facebook live stream, Brandon Maher said that yes, his job is his personality and his identity. He's a commercial fisherman and an asshole. It goes hand in hand, really. It's me and my job. Plus, I have accidentally caught crabs a couple of times. Brandon, we do hope that you are discussing fishing and catching crabs. Okay, good to know. Josh Siskowski over in the live stream this morning says that congrats on the new show. Thank you very much. Brandon Maher says that he finds micro-dosing opiates takes the edge off when you feel like you need a second weekend to recover. Chris Morrill over on the live stream on Facebook says, I was on the student senate at SEMO in the early 90s. That's Southeast Missouri. We didn't have many responsibilities, if I'm being honest, mostly doling out money to various student clubs. Even back then, the LGBT club, or whatever it was called, was very small but very vocal. And they got way more than their fair share of funding, and it was a sign of things to come. Cecilia Harden says that her job is very analytical, math-based, so I have siblings reach out for help with their kids' math. I end up Googling most of it, which I happen to do a lot with my job, too. So do you feel like you're invested with your job, or that your job really defines who you are? Because we were discussing in the segment earlier about how people feel, or the Generation Z is less defined by their job. Like they are not, my job is who I am, right? My career is AP for Liberty. I'm AP for Liberty, which means you know exactly what I'm all about, right? We do the Wake Up America show. I talk about freedom, and that's what we're all about. Another listener texted in and said this morning, as a small business owner, I'm always on the clock, so it is definitely a part of my identity. Yeah, I know what you mean. You can text the show again at 573-319-1586. We were supposed to have Spike Cohen on this morning, and maybe we'll still have him on, but at the moment right now, we don't have him on Zoom. We're supposed to have him on a video chat, but unfortunately, I don't have anything. I have no Spike Cohen. I know. But hopefully he'll come in on the next segment. If he does, we'll definitely get him on. Yes, so I apologize for that. And Stephanie Petersen, my wife over there, is talking about how people people, she says, being a social worker, my friends and family tend to pick my brain whenever they hang out with me. I've gotten used to offering free therapy sessions wherever I go. I have noticed this. So my wife is a social worker and she does therapy. And I have noticed that people, it's kind of like, how when a doctor will be at a party or something like that, and somebody will like, hey, I've got this rash, or they're like, doc, sometimes I fart when I eat too many beans. What do you think I should, what do you think I should do? Is there something wrong with me? Right. Well, they'll do the same thing with my wife, but it's like, what are you going to do? They'll want her to kind of like do a therapy session right there. Or they'll be like, oh, you're a therapist. Well, let me just tell you all of my problems right now. And let me just tell you, somebody texted in at 573-319-1586 and said, maybe wrong time zones given. No, I said 8:35 Eastern. 7:35 Central, of course. So maybe there was a little confusion, and they did say that he was going to be on in a few minutes. But you know what? That's the challenge. When you don't have a producer in Studio 2, it's not like I can just be like, oh, let's just get them in here. I mean, it's a one-man band, for God's sakes, for now. So you can text the program this morning again at 573-319-1586. Hopefully we'll be able to get Spike Cohen on in just a minute. I'll send him another message when we go to our commercial break in just a moment. Stephanie Petersen was taught. Oh yeah. So anytime that that she is being approaches someone about being a therapist, they'll start telling her all of their like intimate psychological issues and stuff. And we've been watching The Sopranos lately, which apparently a lot of people are watching The Sopranos recently. It's some big deal, but. She's really fascinated with the relationship that he has with his shrink in that office. But I mean, there's kind of like, there are ethical lines with therapy that you're not supposed to cross. And most people don't know them. So of course they just, ask her all kinds of weird questions and stuff. And she can't do it. Right. You can text the show this morning, 573-319-1586. Chris Morrill says, it came to me. It was the Gay Lesbian Alliance. And just while I was there, it changed to Gay Lesbian Bisexual Alliance. Since then, they've added 10 freaking letters. I'll go ahead and just summarize the news for you this morning that we were going to talk about with Spike Cohen. Maybe we'll get him on here in a minute. We'll see. But Yeshiva University put all student club activities on hold after the Supreme Court declined to block an order requiring the school to recognize their LGBT club. So this is essentially the university saying that they're going to hold off on all undergraduate club activities when it takes steps to follow the roadmap provided by the U.S. Supreme Court to protect religious freedom, they say, citing their upcoming Jewish holidays. Now, this email was sent after the country's highest court declined in a 5-4 vote a request from the university to block a lower court order requiring it to recognize a, quote, Pride Alliance LGBTQ student club. Now, what's interesting is that, rather than allow the LGBT club to continue, Yeshiva University has decided to disallow all student activities. Now, what my libertarian take on this is going to be, but I'm going to add a little twist onto it, something that might shock you. Since later on the show we're going to talk about Alex Jones and Steven Crowder saying that they are anti-libertarian. If they can be anti-libertarian, then I guess I'll say something anti-libertarian here as well. So, but you got to hold on to the end of this segment before you hear me say this. Yeshiva University is not allowed, if they take a single dime of taxpayer dollars, right? This is the argument these days. If you take taxpayer money, then you've got to sing the king's. If you take the king's coin, you've got to sing the king's song, right? So it's illegal to discriminate in the United States, right? This is essentially where you would get the idea, get back to the whole bake the cake, right? So when we went, if we go back all the way back to 2016, when I ran for president, the big debate between myself and Gary Johnson was whether Christian bakers should have to bake a gay wedding cake. I argued that they did not, that there's a private property right, that there's a religious liberty right, and that the person should be able to discriminate if they please. It doesn't mean that I agree with a Christian baker. I don't agree with a Christian baker. That's my personal moral code. I would serve anyone who came into my restaurant. If you wanted me to make you a gay wedding cake, fine. Now, if you wanted me to make you a communist wedding cake, I would enjoy the irony of the capitalistic endeavor in which you've engaged in, but with you paying me money to make a hammer and sickle cake, right? But some people, they say, okay, well, I don't want to put a gay, rainbow on a gay wedding cake. And there's a long story about somebody who actually bought a gay cake with like hot leaves on it for me for like during that time period. But I'll have to tell you later, remind me later. But when it comes to the LGBT, club and whether or not, you shouldn't punish everybody just because the gay. It's not fair to the kids who want to participate in a club to say, oh, well, all of the other clubs are going to be disallowed because we don't want to allow the LGBT club. It goes against your religion. Okay, fine. I don't agree with it. But if it was a private university in totality, sure, then maybe they would have a case. But, I mean, is there really even such a thing as a private university anymore? I mean, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, I wish Spike was here to set the record straight on this one, but correct me if I'm wrong, but there's pretty much only Hillsdale is the only college that doesn't take some semblance of public funds. Again, somebody fact check me on this one. You can text in at 573-319-1586. But if you're taking public funds, you're not allowed to discriminate. You have to comply with the Civil Rights Act, which means that there's going to be repercussions if you discriminate against people. Right now with this LGBT club and this issue here, and I know that this is my anti-libertarian statement here, and I know that a lot of my listeners may not agree with me on this one, but the question at this point is how tactically, how much of your time are you going to spend trying to fight for someone else's right to discriminate against gays? For me, not much. Right. I think you should be able to. I don't agree with you doing it, right? But I'm also not going to spend all of my time and energy trying to defend religious bigotry. I just won't. And I don't agree with that view from the Jewish religion, and I'll say so openly and proudly. So I'm not going to spend all my time fighting for your rights to discriminate, okay? If I believe in your right to discriminate, I'll say so. You should have the right to discriminate. Do I think you're an asshole? Yes. Am I going to spend any more time defending you on this one? No. Do I defend everybody's rights? Sure. Tactically, do I have time to defend absolutely everyone's rights all the time, everywhere? No, I don't. I don't have the time. I can't fight for, Malala's, rights in Pakistan to, not be murdered for wanting to get educated. Do I think that they should be allowed to be educated? Women should be allowed to be educated in Pakistan? Yes. Do I have the time to sit down to fight for something like that? No, I don't. There are certain fights that are worth fighting, and you can't fight every battle, and you can't stop to fight to beat every kicking dog. Yeshiva University probably lost this case, and the Supreme Court declined to hear this case because it was a classic civil rights case, and that they decided that the lower court's decision was correct. I may not agree with that, but that's how it's going to be for now. What do you think about that? Do you disagree? Send me a text, 573-319-1586. Tony Allegro says, I was okay with the LGB, but I'm going to say it. The whole push of the T's on children is an initiation of force against the innocent. He's talking about transgender there. Heather Coyle says, I saw my nephew this weekend. He told me there's a kid in his middle school that identifies as a cat. My significant other substantiated this. Oh my God. Heather Coyle says, I'm very tolerant, except when it comes to sexualizing my kids. However, when we accepted gay marriage, we accepted homosexuality into our culture, which includes children. What do you think? Again, send us a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. One listener texted in and says, New St. Andrews in Moscow as well. They don't take public funds. Moscow, Idaho. Vic Duncan over the stream says, what happened to the right to refuse service for any reason? I remember seeing signs in businesses all the time. Well, I believe in that, Vic, but that fact is that that's not the law. You're not allowed to refuse service for any reason. You're allowed to refuse service for certain reasons. And again, you and I, we may not agree with that, but that is the law. And, the question is how much time are we going to go spending trying to relitigate the 1963 Civil Rights Act? So, and again, I fight for, and I believe in the freedom of people who I disagree with, right? Most people don't. Most people only believe in freedom for people who agree with them, right? And everybody else who doesn't agree with them has to go to prison, right? That's what, go to jail, directly to jail right away. That's what most people are like. But the reality is that, if you only have time for certain fights, setting down and, trying to relitigate the Civil Rights Act is not going to happen. And that's why the conservative majority of the Supreme Court probably decided not to hear Yeshiva University's case. Now, Yeshiva University punishing their own students by saying, well, we dislike homosexuals so much that we're going to actually disallow all of the other students from being able to participate in activities. Remember, kids participate in these activities for scholarships, they participate in these activities to be able to grow, to grow into careers and things like that. So, I mean, they're punishing everybody for that, right? Which I think is just wrong. What do you think? Maybe you disagree. Send me a text, 573-319-1586. Stephanie over in the live stream says, for me, Catholic schools and Jewish schools should abide by the same rules. No religious school should be above another. Yeah, I agree. But what it really comes down to, I think, Stephanie, and for many of our listeners, again, is the question of the public funds, right? And, it's a little muddled because, we'll hear as well, from people when they're talking about social media censorship or being banned from social media. They say, well, social media can't do this because they get subsidies or they get these handouts, right? But the problem with that argument, for example, is that everybody got a stimulus. Everybody who got a stimulus check means that the government can tell them what to do by that logic, right? So if you got a stimulus check from the government, then that means that the government can take your rights away, right? Well, see, so that's a slippery slope, and we want to be careful about making those kinds of arguments before we say, well, if you take the king's coin, you have to sing the king's song. Well, just because everybody got a stimulus check doesn't mean they give up their First Amendment rights or their Second Amendment rights. Am I right? Am I right? Kenneth Slayer over on the live stream, hiccup, says conservatives on the Supreme Court wanted to hear the case. Kavanaugh and Roberts are not really conservatives. Robbie Thurman says public funds always have strings attached. Boy, if that isn't true, I don't know what is. We still got lots more great programming to come for you, and hopefully I'll be able to get Spike Cohen. I'll figure out what's going on during the commercial break, and maybe we'll be able to get him on the program. But if not, when we get back, we're going to talk about a controversial new surgery where the Silicon Valley titans are spending their money breaking their legs. Why are they breaking their legs? Surgically breaking their legs. I'll explain that to you, all that and more, when we get back on the Wake Up America Show with Austin Petersen at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Good morning. It's 7:55. It's time to rise in freedom. Happy Monday. Thanks for joining us on the Wake Up America Show with Austin Petersen. Glad to have you here. Text us in at 573-319-1586. We've got lots more great content and interviews to go. Bill Maher accuses leftists of riding a woke time machine. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I'll play that clip of him going after the left more and more. He's been pretty aggressive against him. It's been pretty awesome to watch them the left going after Bill Maher. And, I have to say, it's been exciting to see his transformation to conservatism. I guess we'll have to send him a invitation to join the Republican Party. What do you think about that? There's a lot of liberals that are feeling like they're not being represented within the Democratic Party. And it's been nice to see so many of them taking the red pill. Again, you can text us this morning at 573-319-1586. Brandon Maher over in the live stream says, I find myself suspicious of some things like this. If you join a Jewish school, for instance, then you need to be aware of their views on LGBT. It's, quote, baked into the cake, to speak, he said. It's obviously going to be a rather difficult place to launch an LGBT club, and of course it will be fought tooth and nail by the administration, and you're almost guaranteed a lawsuit. It makes me wonder if any of these controversies are constructed by design to either make a statement or make money. I obviously can't say it is the case here, but we can imagine this scenario playing out and being an attractive prospect for those of dubious morality. That's a good one. You can text us too at 573-319-1586. One listener said, texted in and says that, it's just because you are anti-woke and anti-radical leftist does not make you a conservative. That's probably true, but what do you mean? Can you expand on that, listener, if you wouldn't mind? Tony Allegra over in the Facebook stream says, Bill Maher says a lot of things, but until he puts his money where his mouth is and stops voting for the party he's speaking out against, he's just a hack. Brandon Meyer says, I think that Bill Maher is more of a classical liberal than a conservative. Well, if so, he's making some of the best arguments that we've seen against the left, and we're going to play those for you when we get back from the show. But I have another question of the day for you for today, and this one is just for the men out there. Men only. Ladies, sorry, you're going to have to take a back seat on this one. You can have a discussion with us, but this is just for the gentlemen this morning. The question is, men, what is something that you wish other men would stop doing? That's the question of the day. For the last hour of the show, we'll discuss that as well as many other things. Bill Maher is going to be joining us. Not Bill Maher, but we're going to talk to him about it. We're going to play his clips and dissect them. But the question of the day for the last hour in the show is, and I think we're going to get some really interesting responses, is what is something that you wish other men would stop doing? Now, here's the thing. If you're over on the live stream this morning, and you're going to try and answer over there, I get it. Sometimes I'll miss your comments. If you're on YouTube, for example, I can't monitor all of the different comment threads. So if you really want to have your comment read on the show, text it, 573-319-1586. Tell us, men, what is something that you wish other men would stop doing? Jack Hunter is going to be on the show this morning at 8:35 Central. We're going to talk to him about Steven Crowder and Alex Jones saying that they're anti-libertarian. What? What does that mean? Well, Jack Hunter says that means that they basically agree with Michael Moore's definition of capitalism. Oh my God. It's just too early for this on a Monday. I guess when we will have to wait until we get back for more on this on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupamericashow.com. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. It's 8:05. I'm Austin Petersen, and you're watching the Wake Up America Show. Thanks so much for joining us. Glad to have you here. We've got lots more great content to go on the show. Bill Maher went after woke leftists over the weekend and their historical ignorance. I'm going to play that clip here in just a moment here, and we're going to break it down. At 8:35 this morning, Steven Crowder and Alex Jones last week came out and said that they're anti-libertarian. What does that mean? Jack Hunter says that they're agreeing with Michael Moore's definition of capitalism. All that and more, of course, on this very special episode of the Wake Up America Show with Austin Petersen. And, of course, the question that I've got out there, that I've posted out there for all of the men of the show who are watching today, is what is something that you wish other men would stop doing? So that's the question for you today. What is something that you wish other men would stop doing? Text us in with your answer at 573-319-1586. Men, what is something that you wish other men would stop doing? Here's a little teaser. One listener texted in and said, I wish other men would stop obsessing about watching sports and playing in fantasy sports. Grow up, dudes. It's cool to play sports, but sitting on your butt all weekend obsessing about other dudes playing is just weird and annoying. That's interesting. Another listener texted in and says, seems like many on the mainstream right seem to jump on the bandwagon of someone who skewers the left to the fault of defaulting with the label conservative rather than vet their bona fides. You need more than one statement to be conservative. Oh God, that is a great text. And I would love to go into that. I could do a whole show on that, and I've got a lot to say about that point. But, Jack Hunter is going to address that and, many other things. I've got a Bill Clinton clip that I'm going to play here for you. Yes, Bill Clinton clip coming up here at 8:22 that I'm going to play where he talks, where he's going to talk about the rise of populism. But first, let's play this clip from Bill Maher and his show over the weekend where he talks about the unified theory of wokeness. We're going to move over to our video. Take a listen to this. Now, that's judging everyone from the past by the standards of the present. So this is probably a new term that you need to add to your lexicon. Presentism, judging the past by the values and ethics that we have in the present. So whether or not it's, tearing down statues, wanting to remove Thomas Jefferson from the Mizzou state campus of Missouri University's campus here. Name any kind of woke critique of George Washington or any of them.
How we teach our kids history has become a big controversy these days, with liberals accusing conservatives of wanting to whitewash the past, and sometimes that's true. Sometimes they do. But plenty of liberals also want to abuse history to control the present. And last month, a scholar named James Sweet caught hell for calling them out for doing just that. He criticized a phenomenon known as presentism.
Here it is.
Which means judging everyone in the past by the standards of the present.
Now, I already said what I said about this concept of presentism, so I'm going to continue on with this one. But that is a word that you definitely want to add to your lexicon. Let's continue.
It's the belief that people who lived 100 or 500 or 1,000 years ago really should have known better.
Obviously, they should be as enlightened as we are.
It's like getting mad at yourself for not knowing what you know now when you were 10. Sort of me, spending all that time raising sea monkeys and...
Okay, let's pause for just a moment, and I'll say it's not exactly like that. I mean, that's not a bad comparison, but I mean, consider that, a lot of countries had already gotten rid of slavery before the American Civil War had, right? So it's not like there weren't people at the time who knew slavery was wrong. Thomas Jefferson knew that slavery was wrong. Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and many of those people knew that slavery was wrong. So it wasn't as if there weren't people who already had a higher sense of morals or ethics. But in that sense, Thomas Jefferson was a bit of a hypocrite. Still, I think I see, and you see, what Bill Maher's point here is on this one. And I think, the key word of the day, of course, is presentism. Let's continue.
Playing with slot cards and jerking off to a Playboy in the barn.
Not on radio anymore.
Who doesn't have moments from your past that make you cringe? Who hasn't said, I can't believe I said that? I can't believe I wore that.
Me, a lot. I can't
believe I thought that. I can't believe I did that.
Me, every day.
You ate dirt. You wanted to be a Ghostbuster. You shoplifted gum.
It wasn't gum for me.
You tried to be a white breakdancer.
Funny, but no, I was never a breakdancer. Funny stuff. All right, let's pause that for just a moment because, Bill Maher makes a good point here. But the problem, of course, is that, the liberals are not going to, the people who need to hear this are not going to listen to him because now they're just going to write him off because the left has gone so wackadoo that, they're not going to listen to somebody who is, I would say Bill Maher is the definition of the quintessential liberal. What about you? So, somebody texted in. Of course, whenever you do everything right, nobody texts in, right? But when something goes wrong, everybody stops to tell you that. So, of course, my text messages are blowing up. 573-319-1586. No sound of the video, no audio here. Thank you very much. You can text the show as well at 573-319-1586. Don't just give me a comment whenever something goes wrong. How about when something goes right? Unfortunately, I am a little bit offended.
How dare you?
How dare you not text into the show and tell me, men, what's something that you wish other men would stop doing? I'd love to hear from you. You can text in again, 573-319-1586. Tell me something that you think, as a man, other men should stop doing. I'd love to hear from you. Here's Matt Unruh texting in saying, you're doing great. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. It's good to have a little bit of support. Yes, and of course we are still riding the woke time machine this morning, talking about Bill Maher and how leftists are engaging in presentism. This concept of presentism is where you apply the standards of today to people in the past. So that's why the show today, of course, is riding the woke time machine. Great Scott, Marty, we have to go back to the future. And all I can say is, man.
Oh, my God, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Get your ass on, boy. Get your goddamn ugly ass on.
Oh, that's right. We are no longer on radio. That means that sometimes curse words will be dropped in the show. I do try and keep them to a minimum, and I haven't said the F word myself on the show, much to Chris Morrill's chagrin. But I want to ask you, before we go into the next segment, and I play the clip from Bill Clinton talking about why Bill Clinton thinks that populism is all the rage today, what led to the populist movements of today, and his time over the 90s presiding over a neoliberal world order. We're going to hear from Bill Clinton on that one. But before we do, I want to make sure that you all are texting me again. The men who are listening to the program, text me in. What is something that you wish that other men would stop doing? What is something that you wish other men would stop doing? I want to hear from you again. 573-319-1586. Good morning. It's 8:20. You're watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. Time to rise in freedom. Happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. Glad to have you on the program this morning. I've still got lots of great content for you to go. Jack Hunter is going to be joining us at 8:30. Over the last week, we heard from Stephen Crowder and Alex Jones, who did an interview together and said that they are anti-libertarian. I'm definitely going to play that clip for you here at the end of this segment. But before I do, I've got an interview that somebody did with Bill Clinton, Fareed Zakaria, talking to him about the neoliberal world order of the 90s and how it might have led to the rise of populism today. Let's go ahead and take a look at that one, and we will watch the clip. Take a listen. Hopefully the audio will work this time, right? Yes, exactly. Take a listen.
The great political trend of our time remains populism, which is still, well, popular in many places around the globe. America is not immune, of course. Look at Donald Trump and his hold on the Republican Party. I wanted to hear President Clinton's take.
A lot of people look at these various populist movements and say it all comes out of the excesses of the neoliberal era, the 90s, when we had a lot of
great
growth,
90s,
a lot of markets opening up,
the roaring 90s,
but it left behind some people, and it left behind particularly the white working class. Now, you presided over this incredible period of growth.
So we'll pause there for just a moment. Fareed Zakaria here has nailed it, right? When he talked about the 90s, and the 90s was a great economic boom time here in the United States when, the growth of the internet and of mobile phones were starting to proliferate across the country. We didn't have smartphones just yet, and social media just yet exactly didn't exist as we know it today. Maybe that was another reason why it was such a great time. But he talked about the excesses of the 1990s and how they might have led to the rise of populism today, where a white working class was left behind, which is something that we do frequently hear. We used to hear from Democrats, but now quite frequently we hear from Republicans. Let's continue on and hear what Bill Clinton has to say about this.
In the United States. Do you think there's something to that critique?
There is, but let's look what happened. And no one ever talks about, and although we've finally got two great articles on the sharp decline in poverty over the last 35 years in America, because we keep adding on to what's working and stopping what doesn't, which is what government should really do and what anybody does with their lives.
Platitude.
But the truth is, there were problems with a market-oriented economy where whenever you change the technology, and we moved into IT-related business, there's always an advantage to the people who get there first.
Well, that's not just anything with technology. Sorry to pause so much, but that's with any new economy. We've had many different eras in our history. The Industrial Revolution. Certain people were left behind before that. People, we had remember when we used to nobody who's alive or who's listening to this show remembers, but they used to deliver ice to go to your ice boxes before we had refrigerators, and the people who delivered ice were left behind. But the problem, of course, is that every generation then has a generation of Luddites, and those people think that technology moving forward, that refrigerators are a bad thing, right? People who used to wave fans for the emperors no longer have jobs because, well, we have air conditioning now, right? So the problem is that, there are always going to be certain people who are going to be left behind in that economy. And the question is, what is it the government can really do in order to protect that class of people from being left behind? And I don't think that there is anything that a government can do. That's my opinion, and it's certainly not a popular opinion, and it's the reason why people like Alex Jones and Steven Crowder are calling themselves anti-libertarians, because they see this white working class of people who are unable to get online and to do, well, for example, what am I doing right now, right? Multi-stream to, several social networks and monetize all of those social networks, monetize a fan base, produce a show, and, accomplish this technical feat, which we do sometimes still mess up here this morning, and be able to live in this digital economy, this information economy such as we have right now. There are people who either can't or won't, and I think it's probably, another unpopular opinion, I think it's probably more won't than can't transition to this new economy. And because they can't or won't, they're being left behind, and they're pining or yearning for the days when they didn't have to worry about how to use a smartphone. Let's continue on.
And the people that get there first are those with the money, with the ideas, with the access to technology. And then society has to catch up. And the real problem is that in the United States and several other countries, there wasn't enough done to do the catching up. That's all true. That's what my campaign in 1992 was all about. The thing is if you think government officials are going to be able to solve that kind of a problem, I've got a bridge to sell you in the Tuscumbia Bridge Company here in mid-Missouri. When I left office, we'd moved 100 times more people out of poverty into the middle class than my predecessors.
But that wasn't the Clintons who had done that, right? It wasn't the Clintons who had moved people out of poverty. It was the economy. It was the growth of information technology.
Because I understood that. It's the only time since the end of World War II when the percentage-wise, the incomes at the bottom of
I know that's how you're feeling right now.
Not that I wanted to make them poor, but if you look at a graph of, let's say, that their most
How dare you?
successful president was Reagan, because it was the first time we'd ever been on a deficit-fueled sugar high in peacetime. But in every quintile, except the top 5%, really, they did better in the 1990s. The American people did.
We did because of the economy, because we had a relatively freer market than we have today. See, the problem is that we have this situation in the United States, and it's a natural human phenomenon, is that when people get to the next level, they don't throw the ladder back down for everybody else. They make it harder for people to be able to climb the ladder. This has happened to me so many times in my career, where I'll get to a certain level and then there will be someone who is above me, and rather than to help me up, they, kick you or, stomp on your hands, your fingers, on the ladder, and then pull the ladder up to make sure that you can't get up there. It's just some kind of a natural instinctual human phenomenon. I got mine, screw you, you can't have yours. But the problem is that the way that most people, and I won't call them capitalists because they're not, they're cronyists or they're corporatists, what they do is they use the power of the government to prevent competition. So when I say that they're pulling the ladder up, they're using the government to prevent competition. They're asking their legislators to write laws, and they are using the power of government to protect their ability to do business without much competition. Now, I'm going to play this clip for you. This is of Alex Jones and Steven Crowder, and I'm going to talk to Jack Hunter about this one. But this is Alex Jones and Steven Crowder last week talking about why they are anti-libertarians. And I'll string that along with the conversation about Bill Clinton, because I do think that these things are all intimately tied. What do you think, though? Send me a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. I'm going to go ahead and play that clip for you of Alex Jones and Steven Crowder. Take a listen to this.
We're a dividing line between corporations, a free market, which I support. These are effectively thug arms of the government, and libertarianism cannot stand up in the face of that.
I 100% agree with you. In fact, I'm no longer even a little L libertarian. I'm anti-libertarian. 30 years ago, when I was first starting to get on air, 25 years ago, Republicans were pretty bad news, wanted to censor everybody, had a lot of problems. Right. The left hadn't turned into this pro-pedophile, Satan worship cancer it is completely yet.
You just hit the trifecta. Go on.
So I thought, well, libertarians, want to leave people alone socially, but they want a smaller government. They must be good.
Correct.
But it was big think tanks and big money funding libertarians. So conservatives would always think of corporations as perfect, and as government.
Lie after lie after lie. So, anti-libertarians, so libertarians are for limited government. They are for socially leaving people alone. They're not for saying corporations are perfect. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that before I even played this clip, I was just criticizing how corporations use government power to be able to protect themselves from competition from people who are trying to work their way up into the marketplace. Let's continue.
Is bad instead of it being a balance. And so now the globalists admit they were building governments basically run by corporations, or corporations so big they operate like governments, but way more efficient and way more authoritarian.
There's no longer.
And I just really, it's hard because I don't have the time to explain to you, sit down and talk about, like, for example, the Virginia company. For the state of Virginia was founded by a corporation, for example. And a lot of people don't know that, and how it became a commonwealth is a whole long story that I don't have time to get into. But we're going to have a big brain segment here with Jack Hunter, who's going to join us to respond to. He wrote a piece last week at basepolitics.com. He's going to respond to Alex Jones saying that he's anti-libertarian, and talk about why essentially what's happening here is that they are accepting a Michael Moore view of capitalism. We've got a lot of great content left to go. Don't forget,
Want an engaging
this morning at 573. Text us in at 573-319-1586. Again, the text line is 573-319-1586. You don't want to miss a single minute of the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Glad to have you here on the program this morning. Delighted to have you. You can text the show at 573-319-1586. My next guest wrote a piece over at basepolitics.com who argued that the video clip that you just saw of Steven Crowder and Alex Jones saying they're anti-libertarian means that they agree with Michael Moore's definition of capitalism. He's Jack Hunter, and he's joining us on the phone right now. Good morning, Jack.
Good morning. Good to be with you, Austin.
Yeah, glad to have you here. So what's the basis for your piece here? How could you go from Alex Jones and Steven Crowder saying they're anti-libertarian to saying that they agree with Michael Moore's view of capitalism? Can you explain?
I can. And look, I'm not somebody, I'm a conservative. I'm a libertarian. I'm a free marketeer. I'm somebody who believes in capitalism. I'm not looking to pick a fight with my fellow libertarians or conservatives. Steven Crowder obviously is a conservative comedian who many know, and, great report, and a good guy in many ways. Alex Jones is controversial, has been in court lately, and, some people like him, some people have a problem with him. I'm not looking to pick a fight with these guys. But there's been a trend on the right in recent times in which national conservatives, whatever you want to call them, have been trying to pick a fight with libertarians, and in particular trying to demean free markets or free market capitalism and be pro-government. And so Steven Crowder took it upon himself to share a clip from an interview with he and Alex Jones saying why Alex Jones and I are anti-libertarian. And in this clip, that's under a minute, they basically say, he says, and Alex Jones agrees with it and expands on it, that if you believe in free markets and capitalism, you support a system in which big government is in cahoots with big corporations, and that's somehow capitalism, and they're against that, and libertarians are for that. I called that out explicitly, and you mentioned Michael Moore. I tied that in with about a decade ago. Michael Moore was doing a Q&A for his documentary Capitalism, A Love Story, in which he denounces capitalism and free markets and defines it as big government being in cahoots with big corporations, and that's what he calls capitalism. Well, that's what Crowder and Jones did in that clip that Crowder shared while calling himself anti-libertarian. I was just pointing out that this progressive leftist who hates free markets and capitalism was defining capitalism the same way that Steven Crowder and Alex Jones, people who are right-leaning, were also defining it in that clip. And I think that tells you a little bit about where they're coming from when they denounce free markets and capitalism and libertarians.
If you're just tuning in, we're speaking to Jack Hunter, who's on the line with us this morning. You can text in the program at 573-319-1586. A little earlier on the show, Jack, I played a clip of Bill Clinton where he was being interviewed talking about whether or not the neoliberal excesses of the 1990s led to white working class voters being left out. You probably remember the old meme that went around the internet where it was called Learn to Code, where liberals were attacking, white working class voters, saying that, if they lose their coal mining jobs because they overregulate, then maybe you should learn to code. Well, of course that got turned around full face. But I mean, the question is, what do we do, Jack, unfortunately, where you have this, white working class voters who, many of them voted for and supported Donald Trump because he promised to make America great again. These people feel left out by the new digital information economy because, they don't know how to code. They don't know how to, run a live stream podcast like we're doing right now. And many of them feel as if, they would like to return to an economy where, they can make widgets in a factory again, Jack. Maybe we can go back to that. Maybe we can't. But those people have concerns that are real and valid, and they see libertarians as not providing a solution to that. So what would you say to that?
I think that's a fair way of looking at the current state of the economy, where the labor market is and whatnot. Look, our friend Austin Glenn Jacobs, formerly Kane of the WWE, he's the current mayor of Knoxville County in Tennessee. When he ran his campaign as a libertarian-leaning Republican, focused on vocational education. A lot of these technocratic elites and whatnot will focus on, learn to code, and all these things are really kind of out of step with people, especially if you're older and you've been in the labor market for a while. And it's really unrealistic to expect people to embrace something like that. But the idea of manual labor and working with your hands and promoting vocational education, not only is that wise, it's something that's very needed in the market. It's something that people can wrap their heads around, the working class, and something that pays well at this point. A lot of people with liberal arts education who have a lot of student debt right now are not doing jobs that have anything to do with what they went to school for. But there's a lot of people out there that do know how to be handy and work with their hands and understand the labor market in a way that's really hands-on, manual labor, however you want to look at it, that can find good jobs right now because they're much needed. So I think that's a good focus. Whatever Bill Clinton said when he said it, that's typical Bill Clinton. But I think that's realistic, what I just said, to sort of focus on those things and how everyday average middle American people can find work that they can support their families and themselves.
Now, Jack, we sometimes get made fun of by conservatives because, they say we're not willing to fight back. We have a situation where, I am always on the edge of being banned from social media. Jack, if you look at my list, if you look at my list of violations on Facebook, it's page after page after page, 30-day ban, 90-day ban, 60-day ban, 3-day ban. And every once in a while, something will be rescinded because it's an algorithm. But, I know that there's somebody whose job it is to watch Austin Petersen all day and what he posts. So they, but conservatives will say, these social media companies are your enemy. What are you going to do about the fact that they're essentially in bed with government, right? They call this job owning, where, the Biden administration goes to, the FBI sends out people to Facebook and tells Mark Zuckerberg, hey, there's going to be Russian disinformation. You guys need to pull back on the, any disinformation you might see. And then, one of the biggest stories that might have changed the outcome of the last election, gets suppressed, the Hunter Biden laptop story. So, I mean, what is the libertarian response to social media companies essentially doing the bidding of government?
Well, there's multiple ways we can look at this. They're the national conservatives, which is a rising thing on the right, want to use antitrust legislation to basically go after private corporations and dictate what they can say, what they can't say. I disagree with that. And I'm somebody who, like you, Austin, I will be censored on Facebook or Twitter for posting things like Rand Paul wants to spend less money, federal money, like something that
missing context,
right? Missing context, it goes against community standards, you name it, something like that. They are basically censoring basic political speech, which our First Amendment guards against the private corporations. It is what it is. What I would argue is that these platforms lose power over time when they do things like this. I remember a time when all of us were on MySpace and this new thing called Facebook popped up. It's like, why would we leave MySpace? MySpace where it's happening, right? You have companies like Rumble who are trying to rival YouTube. And a lot of conservatives and right-leaning people are going there because YouTube will censor, just basic political speech, as I just described, and Rumble is growing exponentially. So I think the market is always the best answer. Those who disagree want to, put their hands in the free market. Forget the fact that if their government cronies are in power, which they're not right now, but if, let's say, Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis is in power, and that's the people who are deciding how you regulate speech on social media. Well, that's all fine and good, but you know what? Kamala Harris might be in charge of that right now. I don't want any government cronies in charge of that kind of thing. I want us to be able to have free speech in the way that the First Amendment intended and the founders intended. And, that includes the government not censoring speech, and also private companies that, Facebook and Twitter are the common square, whatever you're going to call it. It's where we talk and disseminate ideas and whatnot. They are private companies, but at the same time, the market will speak for itself. And if they censor enough and people feel like they can't say anything, other things will come along, just like Facebook overtook MySpace, and like Rumble's growing big time right now. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah, and the market is speaking. I'm glad you brought that up, Jack. And for those who are on Rumble, just so you know, we are streaming this show live on Rumble as well. Make sure that you follow me over there at AP4 Liberty. But Jack, the market is speaking. Meta, Facebook, they're losing. I think they lost over 2/3 of their value of their stock market price just in the last month alone. Billions and billions of dollars lost. Is the real problem, though, Jack, the fact that, many conservatives are like a lot of leftists? They're not willing to wait for the market to work. They want the government to do something. They have a problem now. They want the government to solve the problem right now.
Well, I think that's exactly right. The problem with the national conservatives is they have a fetish. They want to be anti-libertarian, first and foremost. It's like wanting to be the most punk rock guy when you're in high school, right? It's a fad. So in doing that, they're like, we hate markets. We hate capitalism. We hate competition. And they want the government to come in. They want to do a right-wing version of what Democrats have always done. And, progressives, they have a vision of society that's progressive, that's woke, or whatever the hell they're doing. And they want to use the power of government, state levers, to impose that on everybody. I think that's ridiculous. I'm an American. I love my country. I'm a conservative. And the history of American conservatism is enforcing the Constitution and limits on the power of government. That is what American conservatism has meant for as long as I've been alive, or anybody listening to this interview right now. And if we lose that, if we decide we're just going to be a left version of what Democrats have always done, we love the New Deal. We love all these government programs. We love government censorship. We want to do a version of what they're doing. We've lost the whole thing.
Now, Jack,
I think it's ridiculous.
I agree with you, Jack. Now, we're running out of time, but there is one more little topic on that I'd like to build. And this is just something that I've been going over in my head. And quite frankly, you're maybe one of 10 people that I can have this discussion with. So since I got you on the line, I'm going to ask you about this. Is this sort of kind of a version of what the neocons did back in the 1970s or 80s, in the sense that, remember the argument that Bill Buckley made when he talked about fighting Soviet Russia? And what he said at the time was that in order for us to fight communism, the reason for the not the space race, but the reason for the nuclear arms race, or the arms race between the United States and Russia, the reason we had to have massive spending during the Reagan era, for example, is because in order for us to fight communism, we're going to have to instill a little bit of communism, right? We're going to have, in order for us to beat communism, we're going to have to spend like communists. Is that what the national conservatives are essentially doing? Just kind of like, not really instituting a philosophy so much as what they consider a tactic to be able to advance their ideas, because it's not new for us to hear from right wingers or people who call themselves conservatives or Republicans. Well, we have to abandon the free market to save the free market. You know what I mean?
I absolutely know what you mean. And Austin, you nailed it 1,000% on the head. The neoconservative argument during the Bush-Cheney era was that, big government was okay, especially fighting the war on terror and what we need to do. We have to spend all this money, and we have to adopt basically the same strategy as progressives and the Democratic left, because this is where we are. This is what we have to do. The national conservatives are doing this version of the same thing. And as I mentioned earlier, I know we're running out of time. Historical American conservatism is protecting the Constitution, pushing and reminding people of the boundaries of the federal government as defined by our Constitution. National conservatives want to be a more European version of that. Well, not any version of that. They want to be a European version of the right that, uses the social welfare state to push for right-wing ends. The neoconservatives 20 years ago wanted to do it for warmongering ends. And it's the same thing. Look, the libertarian perspective, which I think is historical American conservatism, is defined by the founders, coming up through Ron Paul. Ronald Reagan said that libertarianism is true American conservatism. Donald Trump had aspects of libertarianism that were very important in his formula. All that needs to be, we need to remind our fellow Americans of, we need to push it, we need to promote it, and that is far more important than trying to copy the Democrats. The neoconservatives did it, the national conservatives did it, and it's a mistake from the get-go.
Yes. Okay, Jack, now I'm going to go ahead and punch through and give you a little bit more time here, and I know that this is maybe this is just really petty of me, but don't you just love the irony of all these people who are anti-libertarians who like to post Ron Paul clicks whenever it gets them clips and say, oh, Ron Paul is right, but then they somehow call themselves anti-libertarians?
Yeah, they're posting Ron Paul clips, and then the next breath they're like, FDR was right about the New Deal. We just spend all this money on making sure the Catholic Church is in charge of the federal government when they can't even get in charge of their own Catholic Church. And they hate the Pope. And it's totally stupid. It is totally high school, middle school BS.
Jack Hunter, you're right. Great articles. Thanks so much for sharing it over at Base Politics. We're glad to see you're still in the fight. You're a good man. We appreciate your time today.
Take care, Austin.
Thank you very much. Boy, that is good stuff. That is good stuff. We love to hear from Jack Hunter over there. You don't get that kind of content in very many places here. Well, that's why you got to listen to the Wake Up America show. Don't you think it's great? You know what I really loved seeing here just a minute ago was when I mentioned Rumble and how we are live streaming this on Rumble. 3 new people just followed me over on Rumble because we are live streaming over there. If you want to get away from big tech censorship, vote with your feet. Right? Yeah, we're streaming on Facebook. Yeah, we're streaming on YouTube and all these other platforms. You get to choose. I'm trying to make this show as available as possible. Yeah, we're on Spotify. Yeah, we're on all these other networks. But if you want to vote with your dollars, vote with your time and your attention, if you're on Rumble, follow us. AP for Liberty. Watch the show over there. Give us a Rumble, right? That's basically an upvote over there or a like wherever you're at. We appreciate you very much for watching the Wake Up America show. When we get back, I'm going to read the responses to the question of the day. You can still get yours in. Men, what is something that you wish other men would stop doing? This question is for the men. Text me in 573-319-1586. Men, tell me, what is something you wish other men would stop doing? I'll read your responses when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. 8:56, you're watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's been a great show so far. Definitely appreciate all of our great guests and all of our listeners watching on all of the social platforms. It's been great to see so many people following us over there on Rumble. So many people apparently are big fans of it. And if you're on Rumble, make sure you follow me over there at rumble.com/AP for Liberty. That's my handle over there. And I'm trying to grow my my audience over there because I'm just one more violation away from not being able to stream on Facebook. It's definitely been difficult for me to get my voice out there on social media in recent months and years because they're just cracking down on people like ourselves. So head over to Rumble and follow me, AP for Liberty over there. What is something that you wish other men would stop doing? All right, time to answer that question. One of our listeners texted in, Matt Unruh, says he wishes men would stop direct messaging his wife with bad pickup lines. Then again, they are pretty funny. The most recent one, either you stop being attractive or talk to me. That's a pretty good one. Another listener texted in this morning at 573-319-1586 and said, guys, I can see an attractive woman on my own. I don't need you pointing them out to me or telling me what you would do with them. What do you want? A high five? I know I don't need your help and I don't care. Honestly, that is a great one. That is a really good one. You can text us in again at 573-319-1586. Another listener texted in and said, the new Liberty movement is underway. Get Bill Maher as a guest. Boy, I would love that. They said, was not bored again. See, that's great. See, the whole point is to make a show that is exciting and fun to watch. Would you do me a favor? Would you share this show with one of your friends? And when I say share it, I don't just mean necessarily send them a direct message, but actually talk to them and say, hey, listen, you should join us over here on the Wake Up America show. My friend Austin has got this really great program. I really think you would enjoy it. You should come and join us on the live stream. Would you share me with at least one of your friends and say, hey, listen, you need to tune into this guy, and ask them personally for me? I would certainly appreciate it. Wow, another one. Low Ranger over on Rumble just followed us over there at AP for Liberty. Camellia says, I'm super curious why I never have any issues with inappropriate direct messages. Sure you don't. Chris Morrill says something about Bob's and Vagine. How about this one? Insulting your friends to look cool in front of a girl, right? Insulting your buddy just so you can look cool in front of a girl. How about that one? Is that something that we as men can agree to stop doing? What do you think? What's something that, as a man, you wish that other men would stop doing? How about this one? That thing where a girl turns you down so you suddenly call her an ugly bitch. It's not a good idea. It's really not hard to not be a rude piece of you-know-what, and it makes you sound pathetic. Agree. Have some respect and imagine that your grandmother could hear you. You know what? That is good advice for anyone. But yeah, when you're speaking to someone, how about pretend like your grandma is actually listening to you? How about that one? That would definitely change how I talk. Maybe I wouldn't say things like bitch on the live stream. Anyways, give us a like, give us a share. Thank you so much for watching the Wake Up America show. Sorry we had a little technical difficulties, but things are getting better. Don't you agree? The Wake Up America show, we keep adding more videos. We keep adding more great guests. We're going to keep bringing you great content as long as you support us. If you want to help support the show, you can make a monthly donation of $17.76 a month, joining Petersen's Patriots. You'll be entered to win this awesome wood sign that's hanging above my head there, and we'll give that away at the end of the month. And of course, you get a 20% discount off the shop, as well as you're entered into prize drawings every single month. So head over to wakeupamerica.show.com/support. Join Petersen's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 today. We want to have a plethora of Petersen's Patriots today make their pledge. Thank you so much for watching the Wake Up America show. We'll see you tomorrow morning here on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamerica.show.com.